Bam.
This is Fritz Coleman, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
We're gonna laugh a minute over here, having a great time. Fritz Coleman. If you guys don't know, do you guys not know Fritz Coleman? One of the biggest names in Southern California for decades, doing the weather, and now podcast, but also comedy. And you have your new comedy. I don't know. Would you call it a special? Are you touring an act? What would you call Unassisted Living?
It's a special. It's a 1 hour special. I do a thing called single topic monologues. Since the beginning of my career, I did one about being a father. I did one about being divorced, and they're all an hour and a half long. I did one about the news business, and I did one about getting slightly older, which was my last one, called Defying Gravity. This recent one, Unassisted Living, is about being headlong into oldness. And so it's fun. It's on Tubi now. It's free streaming. It's for people of a certain age. It's clean. It's just our common experiences of getting old, and God willing, you live long enough, you'll have the same experiences that I'm having.
I love it. What keeps you doing the comedy thing? Because you're not fully immersed in this, or is this your profession now? Would you say you're semi-retired? How would you characterize your comedy career?
Well, my comedy career is full thrust now. I got my job. I was a weatherman in California for 40 years. And I got my job doing the weather at NBC Los Angeles from being a comedian. My boss, the news director at Channel 4 LA, saw me performing at the Comedy Store. And we discussed some things after the show. And I had talked about doing the weather in the Navy. I worked for Armed Forces Radio and Television in the Navy, and told some anecdotes about doing the weather, but not knowing anything about it. And he thought that was very amusing. And he asked me if I had any desire to come to Channel 4 to audition, to do some vacation relief work, to do some fill-in work for the weatherman who hadn't had a vacation in a while. And I was making $25 a night at the Comedy Store. I said, oh my God, when do you want me to start? So I had to audition. I got the job, and I retired 2 weeks shy of my 40th anniversary. So I was doing comedy even before weather, and never stopped doing comedy while I was doing the weather. I was still doing 2 or 3 shows a week. So this has been an ongoing avocation for me. It's always been my first love. And now that I'm retired, I get to do it full time.
I love it. Now, I don't know how well you know him, but you're about to appear with a friend of mine. And actually, my buddy Brad is popping in. I'll put his comment up here on the board. But Brad and I both are friends with Matt Balaker. Now, how well do you know Matt?
I'm sure I know him well. And I don't know, we've probably worked together, correct?
Yeah. You guys are appearing soon on an upcoming card. Okay. I'll look up the date. Yeah.
Maybe in the Mission Viejo show coming up soon?
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to that. It's always a great show there. Fantastic.
Yeah. So when you work on your material, I mean, obviously you're going to your crowd and your age set with this one, but do you stick there, or do you feel like I go wherever I want? I know where the funny is.
No, I'm a fairly rehearsed and well-constructed act. I don't do crowd work unless I'm heckled, and then I do crowd work. But
yeah,
I'm just my words and my stories are important to me, so I don't wander off the track too much that way. Most of the stuff is fairly well constructed.
Yeah. And then do you go to the Comedy Store to do work like all the other comedians do, or where do you wood shop your stuff?
Well, I basically wood shop it in shows that I'm booked for: dinner, speaking engagements, theater performances. This thing in Mission Viejo is a club theater. And so I don't do the clubs too much anymore because I'm too old. When I go there, I feel like I'm a chaperone. And but I certainly workshop it in my various speaking engagements and sort of slowly build a longer set. Yep.
Yeah. How much do you want to work, though? I mean, you have retired. You're not trying to work 300 nights a year, or am I wrong about that? Maybe
I would work as many nights a year as I could get booked. Post-COVID, things are slowly rebuilding. And I would work a lot. I mean, I have children and grandchildren, but they're all some are away and some are working. So my life would not be interrupted. I would work as often as I can. Yeah.
And then do you have aspirations? I mean, look, you've got this thing on Tubi. I mean, that's pretty aspirational, but are you trying to Look, here's the thing about comedy, right? You could say I'm a comedian, and then I've got to determine, what does that mean? Are you hosting? Are you opening for, look, you open for Dave Chappelle, you could be a national headliner, but you're opening for Dave Chappelle, right? Like there's all these tiers. Well, where is your tier? Where do you think you are as a comedian?
I listen, I'm 75 years old. My
Yeah,
tiers were several years ago. But I continue to open for major acts. I've opened for Ray Charles. I opened for Debbie Reynolds. I opened
right.
for Doc Severinsen. I opened for George Benson. I mean, I've opened for many people, and I continue
Yeah,
to do that. So I just like to continue to do it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
what you have to decide early on in a comedy career is your point of view, where it fits into American culture, and what gives you the greatest amount of joy. I don't need to be Dave Chappelle. I don't need to be in that stratosphere of success. I just like to perform. I
Yeah.
like to be invited to speak to groups of people. I think because of the divide in our country socially and
Mhm.
politically right now, people just seize the opportunity to be taken out of their heads for an hour on a night and don't remind them of the darkness of the world. I do no political material because for two reasons. First of all, the shelf life of political material is very short. Second of all, I just think people don't need to be reminded of where we are in the world right now. They want to have a moment of relief, and if I can do that, have a communal experience. I talk about common experiences. We have a good time.
Can I tell you, and maybe because you guys have the same PR person, this is not that much of a coincidence, but I think it's still a coincidence. We had Shelly Herman on the show on Friday, and I don't know if you know Shelly, but Lori represents both you guys. And we brought up Doc Severinsen because she worked as a page for NBC, and
Yeah.
obviously, she knew Doc. Well, she knows Doc, I guess you could technically say,
Mhm.
but Doc is still around and has only recently retired. That's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, after the
You,
Tonight Show went off, he
mhm,
took, although he wasn't allowed to call it the Tonight Show Band,
sure.
he was allowed to call it Doc Severinsen and the Johnny Carson Orchestra or whatever he did, and he toured all over the world with it. But he also is a guest conductor for many symphonies and uh, city orchestras. And I think he's still doing well and living up in Santa Barbara, California. One of the nicest people you will ever meet in show business.
Yeah,
I'll give you a story about Doc Severinsen. So
please.
my parents were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, and my office was right above the Tonight Show, stage one at NBC in Burbank. So I was preparing a video for my parents for their 50th anniversary. So I'm walking around the station getting, local news anchors, and Jay Leno was guest hosting on the Tonight Show. So I went and got a little blurb from Jay, and I got a little blurb from some of the other people that work on the Tonight Show. And Doc was coming down the hall, and I said, Doc, can I just get you to say into my camcorder, happy 50th anniversary to Dorothy and Fred Coleman? And he said, what are you doing at 2:30? I said, what do you want me to do at 2:30? He said, bring your camera, bring a tripod, and come down to rehearsal in stage one. So I went down to rehearsal at stage one and set my camera up, and Doc had the whole Tonight Show band sing happy anniversary to my parents with this big flourish with drums and trumpets at the end. And I was the hero of the anniversary show. It was the coolest thing ever. He was a lovely, lovely man.
Yeah,
He's a lovely, lovely
yeah,
man. I haven't seen him in many years.
yeah. Now, when you work for NBC in LA for so many years, are you like a weatherman emeritus? Like, do they ever call you back? Are you ever invited?
No,
Hey, we're going to do this thing.
no.
No,
Um, the whole flavor of being a weatherman has changed. I was hired from the Comedy Store. I was a comedian. And
right,
only because for years, from April to October, the weather was exactly the same in California every
right.
day. Morning clouds and fog, hazy afternoon, sun high in the low 70s. My whole job was to come up with new ways to say the same weather forecast every day and make it sound refreshing and entertaining. And my job wasn't meteorology. My job was to be the gentle palate cleanser between the tragedy and the sports. That was my
Right.
whole job. Now you have climate change. People are taking weather very seriously now, and you'll notice that most of the people on the air now, at least in the major markets, all have the AMS seal, the American Meteorological Society seal, meaning they have a Bachelor of Arts in meteorology or atmospheric sciences. It ain't no joke anymore. It's a different ballgame. I could not have the job if I had to apply for it now, because I'm so bad at math and chemistry and anything involving figures that I never would get the job. I got it. I was hired when it was the evening newscast was a little more entertaining. I mean, they would always do the news, but it was a little more familial. You know, it was you having a conversation with your friends. It was different. So I got out just in the nick of time.
It was different back then, and you're right. And when you were on before, when you came on, you and Louise were on talking about your guys' podcast. We talked about this. There was a time when you could get that job. And look, in California, because I'm from up north, I live down here in Orange County now, but you're right. Like even up there, it's like, hey, in the summertime, foggy until about 11 at the worst. Then it'll warm up and be real nice. And hey, in the evening, it's going to cool off. Real nice sunset. Make sure you point your eyes to the west and take a picture. You're going to see something real nice. You can see that every damn day. Exactly. And then I moved around the nation as an adult, and I'm like, do you guys watch the weather? It's always the same. And they're like, not around here.
Oh, no.
And I swear to God, I once in Chicago saw green skies. And I'm like, why is the sky green? And, you know, it's because of the
tornado activity. When the sky, yeah. Well, I always say to people come out here and they say, why do you call drizzle a storm? Well, technically it is a storm. And what most people don't realize about California is if you're from some place that has actual weather, like Chicago or Wisconsin or Ohio, you don't understand what the big deal is. But out here, we have 9 microclimates. We have the northern and southern coast. We have the inland and coastal valleys. We have all these. So we have 9 microclimates, and everybody has different weather. And the thing is, the people in Santa Barbara don't care what the weather is in Orange County. So you have to cater to everybody. Not only that, it doesn't take a lot of weather to cause real problems out here. A 10th inch of rain on the freeway after 5 months of dry with the oil and the residue on the freeways can cause major traffic accidents. It also, weather also becomes an issue when we have fires because winds and humidity are extremely important. So weather can be very serious out here at the drop of a hat. Yeah. And people don't get that if they're from other parts of the country.
Yeah. And we're not going to talk weather the whole time. We are going to talk about
that's all right. No problem.
Living, but when my friends from other places say, oh, you know, but I love the change of the seasons. And I'm like, we have like 20 seasons here. A lot of them are perfect. But Jacaranda season's going on right now. And everybody, oh my gosh. You know, and so we have lovely is a season that we have. We have sunset. And you're right, like Santa Ana's is a season. And not all of our seasons are pleasant, for sure.
No. We don't do things halfway out here. We're like a bipolar atmosphere out here. It's either really serious or very mild.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't think that we have fall colors, probably any day of the year, depending on where you are in California, you know, it's just, there's a lot of different kinds of weather out here.
What community in Orange County are you in right now?
I am in Tustin, so I'm just
I'm very familiar. When I go south, first of all, let me just say, thanks to Orange County, comedy gigs did not completely dry up during the pandemic because you guys weren't as closed as we were. I was getting so many wonderful shows down there at, you know, all the wonderful places, Mission Viejo, San Juan Capistrano. It was a long drive, but at least I was getting to perform. Sure. And the audiences were great and they were happy to have me down there. But every time I go to Orange County, for instance, if I work at you know, Laguna Hills, Laguna Woods, you know, the retirement community. I always stop in Tustin. I get off at Jamboree and I go to the marketplace and I go to the what's it called? The bakery, something bakery there right in the corner and get a sandwich. And then I go and get a coffee and I get back on the road. It's my habit. I stop there. Corner bakery.
Corner bakery. Yeah.
So I'm familiar with Tustin.
Well, that's like 10 minutes from my house. Yeah. You should stop in next time. And you're right. Like, we've got a couple different comedy venues all up along, the 5 corridor. And also, and I don't know if you know about this, but I'm involved with a charity called Save the Brave. And actually, everybody listening, Save the Brave. We're going to do our annual ride for the Brave. I'm going to drive across the country. So Temecula to Tucson, Tucson to El Paso, El Paso to Odessa, Odessa to Dallas, Dallas to Houston, Houston to New Orleans, New Orleans to Birmingham, Birmingham to Atlanta, Atlanta to Savannah. And then I'm going to deadhead back with Scott's motorcycle. If you guys want to fund that, I'll
Oh,
put the
so
link down.
are you riding? Are you doing this on a motorcycle?
Scott rides a motorcycle, and then riders join us, and they kind of flex in and flex out. So every state we go to, there's people riding along with us. Some of them stay for a long way, some stay for a state, but people join us along the way.
That's
I ride
very
in the
cool.
chase vehicle. Yeah, it's super great.
How many years have you done it?
This is the 4th year we'll be doing it, and it's through the dead of the summer. We go across I-10 basically as far as we can, and then we take
Southwest
20.
ain't fun in September or whatever.
No. We go through Yuma. Look, you're weatherman. We go from Temecula to Yuma, and then we don't even go so high as Tucson, but we go through Gila Bend and we drop back down. So Phoenix, and we cut right down. It's horrible. It's horrible. Luckily, I'm in the truck, and I'm still it is so hot outside. So it's a crazy ride, and we raise a lot of money. So I'll put the link in.
That's great. I hope you have a successful year.
Yeah, I got distracted by that because we got to plug the ride. I am going to put the link down below, you guys. You guys should definitely support us. But also, Bastards Canteen is where we take off from. And getting back to you, we do comedy nights there, and so I'll connect it to the folks down there, and we do a comedy night. I don't know, once a month or something like that. And we'd love to have you come out. And Bastards is in Temecula, just on I think it's called Old Temecula Road. It's on the frontage road that goes right along 15 right there.
That's
and
in the Old Town area of Temecula.
Yep, it's just
that's such a cool little place.
Yeah. So if you know where Rancho, California is, and you just come back a little bit north, like a mile, and then it's on that western side of the road. It's
very nice.
It's a great place. Yeah, and it's run by a Marine and a bunch of other Marines, and it's a fantastic restaurant. It's got a big old performance venue attached to it. So it's like a restaurant with a stage attached. It's all inside, so you don't get too hot. And we do comedy nights there. And so, Fritz, it'd be great to have you come out there and play.
Send me the information.
I will for sure. Here's just Brad chiming in. Pete and I hit the Starbucks on the north side of Jamboree and Tustin Marketplace often. That's true. Yeah, it's a great place to go. And Brad is a comedian. He not a very good one. No, I'm just playing around. But man, comedy is a big thing. And you're right. When we're trying to heal each other, being able to make fun of one another and being able to take being made fun of and throw it back and forth, it's a big thing.
Good point. Yep. And Orange County's got some great venues. The Irvine Improv is huge. Lots of places down there.
Yeah, the Irvine Improv. And Brea has got a place that's also great. And what are you working on now? I mean, obviously you've got this special on Tubi, but that means you're working on something else.
Well, as soon as Tubi took this special, I start writing the next one. And hopefully it will have enough success on Tubi and some of the other advertiser-supported video streaming services like Hulu and Peacock. I think if we can garner some success on Tubi, we'll be invited to move our product over there and do it there as well. But I'm working on the next one. I'm doing a for lack of a better term, residency. I'm doing 4 months in a row, one night a month at the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood, where I take.
Yeah.
And, I'm always working. That's part of the fun of it for me, is the creative part.
When you were coming up as a comedian, did you ever think that you would take like a 40-year full career, not a break, but like this slight detour as a weatherman for one of the biggest markets in the nation?
No, I didn't set out to be a weatherman.
Yeah.
But this opportunity presented itself. At the time, I was discovered to go to Channel 4, what you would call a mid-level comedian. On the road, you have 3 acts. You have an opener, which is the MC, and what's called a feature act, and then the headliner. The headliner was usually a person that had some national reputation and could sort of control the circumstances of the club. I was a feature act. I would do 20 minutes in the middle, and the pay was miserable. $500-600 a week for 6-night engagement, and sometimes had to pay for my own transportation.
Mm.
So if I could go home with $50 or $100 in my pocket, that's no way to make a living. Plus, I had 2 kids. So when this weather opportunity presented itself, I still get to perform in Los Angeles. As I said before, I still, even in the throes of my weather career, we're doing 2 or 3 shows a week at the Comedy Store and the Improv. So I didn't give it up. I just had a great way to make a living for my family, which I was very fortunate to be able to do.
When you're looking at this, you're a comedian. You have to, for a long time, think, is this working? Am I going to get to stay? You sign a contract, and I can't imagine, like, let's do a 10-year contract, Fritz. I mean, it must be like, when are they going to figure out that I'm not like, like this is not going to work out?
Yeah.
So when did you feel like this is actually, I get to do this, and when did it become comfortable?
When I started to have some success, I started to get high ratings in town. I started to get what's called a high Q score, a TV quotient, which means it's your recognizability in town, and that's what gives you value when you're on television. And when I started to get that, and I started to feel comfortable there, and I didn't need a manager or an agent anymore to negotiate my contracts, I felt comfortable. So, and it takes 5 or 10 years to see if it's all going to work out. And then after a while, you're just there. You're part of the furniture.
And do you have to compete? Like, do you feel like, I don't know, like, we'll just use Dallas Reigns. Is Dallas your competition, or is it just a matter of you taking care of your audience?
Well, it's both.
Okay.
As a newscast, you compete with your competition. It was always my whole tenure at NBC was number 1 and number 2, which was Channel 4 and Channel 7. And we would trade off who was number 1 and number 2 back and forth for years.
Yeah.
You would compete with them. And you can't compete with personality. You are who you are. And you hope people like that. But you can compete in your presentation. That is, you can have the highest tech gear. You can have the nicest visual presentation. And that's the way it goes. And as a newscast, you compete with your competition. That is, you like to be outside the weather venue. You have to, you want to be first on a story. You want to have the most complete coverage of a story. You want to gain a reputation as having owned the story, as we say. That is, we were first on the scene and the best coverage. That's all news stuff. I don't worry about that. I just worry about making my presentation as good or better than my competition. Now, Dallas is a great guy. He's an actual meteorologist. He worked at CNN before he worked at Channel 7. And he just loves it. He loves the science of meteorology. I brought more of a personality to it. I would joke around with the anchor people a little bit. And again, I was the sort of a lighter, non-threatening few moments between the real hard news and the sportscast. Yeah. And Dallas didn't do that, but Dallas was like full on weather. So you accentuate what you think you do well, and that's how you compete.
And I'm going somewhere with this, so bear with me as we build towards it. Hopefully, we'll get to where I think we're going. The newscast as a whole, right? You got sports, and the Dodgers and the Lakers kind of take care of their portion of it. Not that the sportscaster doesn't, do their job, but you have your little part, and there's only so much lift you can give to your half-hour show. Like, you have your little piece, and so if everybody's good, and it's LA, so everybody's good and everybody's tier, the street reporters are all great. I mean, everybody looks like $1 million. It's the major leagues of the news. How much of a difference? Like, okay, everybody's got Doppler. Oh, now we got 3D Doppler. And now we got color 3D Doppler. Like, everybody's playing at the highest level. How much difference can a weatherman or a sportscaster or the street reporter, how much difference can they really truly make, do you think?
The difference is their personality. I'm not Dallas. Dallas is very enthusiastic.
Very fit, he does his squats.
Physical. And that's not me. My addition to the newscast was having a humorous reaction to news that we had just spoken about before I do the weather forecast. So it's personality. Yeah. And sometimes you can't even put your finger on it. People just have a connection with you. News is one of the only ways that television breaks the fourth wall. That means you're staring into a camera. So the illusion at home is that you're looking right at me while I'm watching you at home. It's an illusion, but there's a sense of intimacy that's set up that way. And people have a sense, the camera doesn't lie either. They have a sense, they can see into your soul. They have a sense of who you are, whether you're a good person, whether they enjoy your personality, whether you're comfortable. And then after you do it for a while, you become part of their family. You become part of their daily regimen. I mean, I did the 5 o'clock newscast for 40 years. I would come on TV at 5:18 every night. And when people see you come on the news, it reminds them, oh, I must be still alive. Fritz is on the news. Everything's normal. Everything's going to be okay. Right. You become part of the continuity of their lives. And that's a powerful force. It really is. So,
yeah. And like you said, Northridge earthquake news is going on. And now over to Fritz, and it's like, you've got a job. And the weather. Okay, great. But it's January 17th. I know because that's my birthday and that's the day that earthquake happened.
Yeah.
And so it probably pretty good chance it rained that day. Not that hard, gentle rain. And so, we all know the weather, right? We know what it is, but you're the one chance to give somebody a ray of sunshine, and you're good at that. And so
that really was my job. But you also, particularly, I was hired out of the Comedy Store. So I'm a reactive performer. Like if there's a funny news story, I can have a joke coming out of that news story into the weather. But you also have to be cognizant of the atmosphere in the newscast. If you just came out of a tragic story, a drive-by, a fire, some sort of a death, you have to be very conscious of the feeling that your audience has coming into you and can't pick an inappropriate moment to try to be funny. You have to read your surroundings. And so it's an interesting balance.
Yeah. Yeah. When you are talking about TV, especially, in the 90s and the ratings work differently. And I'm told that it was easier to find women in the ratings than it was men. Like, okay, men sports, great. They're there. But other than that, tough to find us. And so a lot of times you're really talking to the ladies in the household. Did that impact at all how you performed as a weatherman?
That's a great point. I can't change there's nothing I can do to feminize the weather forecast.
Right.
I can give clouds breasts, but but no, you just can't. It's about being honest and easy to understand because people don't care about low pressure systems and high pressure systems and atmospheric rivers and cyclonic movements and all that. They just say to themselves, for the love of God, just tell me, do I need to give my child her Hello Kitty raincoat tomorrow?
Right.
Just give me practical information. They don't really want meteorology. They want two things out of me. They want a little personality and some basic, easy to understand information. People aren't, they're not sophisticated. Not sophisticated, it's a poor term. They're not interested enough to want to talk about like occluded fronts and all that. It just doesn't matter to people. So that's my job. My job is to be a friendly face and deliver some information they can use in their lives.
And really, in Southern California, we don't even care if it rains. We're really not even worried about an umbrella. We do want to know if the Santa Anas are coming so we can bring an umbrella down in the backyard or bring our pillows in. We don't even care if we need to bring a raincoat because we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and Santa Ana winds are really dangerous. Wind damage can blow over trees and knock down power lines. It can exacerbate fires. Santa Anas are bad. The devil wins. They're bad.
How did weathermanning impact and change and evolve your comedy, or were they totally separate things?
Well, I did a show about the 11 o'clock news once, an hour and a half monologue about it. It hasn't changed me too much. I'll tell you, being a stand-up prepared me for being on television.
Yeah.
And that is, TV news is live. So you have to be prepared to react to anything that happens. And the TV news is run by computers now. And anytime a computer is involved, you can almost guarantee there will be at least one nightmare a day that you'll have to improvise your way out of. So
Yeah.
working in clubs to drunk people at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's not anything that a television station can throw at me that I can't react to and get out of reasonably gracefully.
Right.
So I was
Yeah.
prepared. It helped me to improvise and to ad lib. I never used a script in the weather. I would memorize 4 or 5 bullet points. I never used a teleprompter. It was all conversational English with a few things that people need to remember. That's all. So the comedy helped the weather. The weather didn't help the comedy. The weather helped the comedy in a little way, in that people began to recognize me, and it was easier to bring people into clubs.
Yeah. Did that drive your producers crazy that you were so, we'll say non-traditional, non-scripted? Did that bother them, or did they appreciate your ability to do that?
Well, they appreciated my ability to do it. The only time they didn't like it is if I was going over time.
Mm.
When I started the weather 40 years ago, I would get 5 minutes to do the 5 o'clock weather. And when I retired, it was pared down to 2 minutes.
Oh boy.
Because competition increased. Now you have 5 or 6 television stations doing news at the same time. You have the shortening American attention span. And so they would give you 2 minutes. So the only thing that drives producers nuts is if I go over time, especially if they have a breaking news situation. Then I get yelled at in what's called my IFB, my earpiece. Shut up! Yeah.
How long are you going to work for?
Doing comedy?
Yeah.
I'm retired from weather. I've been retired for 2 years.
Yeah. Right.
I'll go as long as I'm lucid and don't need a walker to get up on stage. I love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't require a great deal of physical energy. It requires lucidity. You have to have your brain working, but I love it. I love every aspect of it. I love the writing of it. I love the presenting of it to audiences. I love when they react well. When you can stand on stage and make a group of people laugh and appreciate your commentary, it's a very intimate situation. Some people say it's an odd psychology that you find it necessary to go on stage in the dead of night and try to make a room full of strangers like you. I don't have time to analyze the psychology behind that. It's true. But I know that when it works well, you have a community bond. It's like watching a great movie and the communal reaction in a movie theater full of people. It's really fun when they're all sort of getting it at the same time. Then you leave with this common experience. And that's really all I want. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, we're talking with Fritz Coleman. He's got his link for his Tubi special, Unassisted Living, down below. You guys got to make sure you check that out. When you are writing new stuff, where does that look like? Are you home? Are you up climbing up in a canyon? How do you write?
I'm pretty regimented about what I do. I work for an hour or 2 hours a day, depending on my time. I sit with a legal pad and a pencil, and I sketch out random ideas. And if I have a thread of something that I think requires development, then I take it to my computer and work it out in a way that I can read it. And then I hone it down, and I'll write something and I'll put it away for a week, and I'll go back and read it again and say, is this amusing, or was I fooling myself before? And if it still holds water when I read it again in a week or two, then I work it down to a piece and then take it out and try it in a room. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And not everything works. You can write a piece of material and say to yourself, this is the funniest thing I've ever written, and go out in a club. They have a dazed look on their face. They have no idea, and it doesn't get a laugh. On the other hand, you can do a piece of material, particularly you're a storyteller. I tell stories too. You can get a reaction or a laugh somewhere you never expected it, and that's kind of fun too. So I love the whole process. I love the writing and I love the performing.
What percentage of your first crack at something, what percentage of the time does that land and you're like, that worked?
Well, what I do is I like to try something new every time.
Okay.
So I have a block of me. For instance, I'm going to be at the Simi Valley Performing Arts Center on Sunday, July 2nd, and I'm given a half hour. So 15 minutes of that hour will be a block of pre-established material. And then after I get a little momentum going, then I'm going to do a bunch of new stuff and see how it works. So if they're not amenable to new material, I haven't tanked because I gave them 15 solid minutes ahead of time. But I like to try new stuff all the time. That's how you grow your new set, as we say.
And then that 15 minutes, how is that chunked out?
Well, the only way it's going to work is if you make it blend into whatever you've talked about before. You have to have good transition. If it's a tire squealing transition where you jump from one topic to a totally disparate topic next, it's not going to work because people's brains can't work that fast. So you try to blend it into your other material. Incidentally, since we're talking about guns, how about that AR-15? You know, something like that. And so that's the way it works.
Are you still doing the podcast with Louise?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How do you like that?
It's fantastic. It's I love talking to people and learning things that I didn't know before. They don't have to be a famous person. They can just have a book. Tomorrow we have a fantastic. We tape every Tuesday, and the episodes drop on Thursday. We're going to talk to the producer and two of the participants in a new documentary about blues called Born in Chicago, which is spectacular. It's narrated by Dan Aykroyd. It talks about the African-American blues artists from the Mississippi Delta migrating northward in the 20s and 30s and setting up shop in Chicago, and how blues became electrified because they played outside and they couldn't be heard if they didn't electrify, and all these things. And then they wander into the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and then they wander into white kids liking blues, and then into the Brits coming over here with Eric Clapton and Led Zeppelin and the Stones, all reintroducing American kids to blues music. I can't wait to talk to these guys. It's going to be cool. And we're going to have the director, Bob Sarles. We're going to have one of the legendary blues keyboardists, Barry Goldberg. And then we're going to have Jimmy Viveni, who was Conan O'Brien's band leader for 26 years, who started being a session guy for blues musicians. So it's going to be a fantastic conversation. I love that. Well,
stick with me after the show. I'm going to connect you to Chris Thomas King, and he wrote this book about the blues too.
Yeah,
Chris Thomas King. He's the guy at the crossroads in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And he's second generation bluesman, and he's got this fantastic book. And I know he'd love to come on. He's become a friend, so I'll connect you with him too.
Thank you. Well, he probably knows about this movie.
Oh yeah. I'm sure these guys all go together, and we can't know enough about it. This is a truly and purely American art form, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't know enough about it. It's great. It's
Absolutely.
Great. Hey, I don't want to take all your time. I know you got things to do. What else should we cover? What else do you want to talk about? Everybody needs to go to Tubi. There's the link down below, and go check out anything Fritz does.
A Tubi link right there. You can go just type in my name, and it'll go right to the special. It's a lot of fun. It's great for people of a certain age, if you know what I mean. It's clean. You know, comedians of my generation started out having to audition for The Tonight Show and Merv Griffin, and television shows had to work clean. And so it's a discipline we got into, and it turns out you can have a longer career. So if people my age and older don't, even if they're fans of some of the more famous comedians, they're put off by some of the raw material. So I don't do that. You'll just have fun. I promise. However old you are, just watch it. I hope you enjoy it.
All right. Stand by for 1 sec. Let me wrap this thing up.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours